When I was a kid, I always wanted to know the secrets of the world. I'd look up at the night sky and think about all the things I didn't know about the universe. As an adult, I quickly realized that the secrets of the world mostly revolve around greed, control, power mongering, and for some reason, pedophilia. And if you follow the news over the last few years, it's easy to hold this as true. But it wasn't until I uncovered these 5 truths that I'm going to talk about today that I realized that those are not the secrets of the world. Those are just part of a false narrative for lost people, both for the lost people who have power and choose to pillage and take advantage of the people and resources on this earth, and also for the people who have no power, the masses, to make sense of the world we live in and our place within it. These 5 truths are fundamental facts about reality that have been laid out in hundreds of ancient texts from civilizations, continents, and cultures, most of which never had any contact with one another. Yet they all somehow came to the same 5 realizations. There's an entire world beyond the veil that you're not even aware of. Not because it doesn't exist, but because it's been hidden from you and you've been too distracted to realize it. These truths are so much deeper than anything you could have ever imagined. Yet, at the same time, they're so simple that you might not even be surprised. You may have intuitively even known some of these truths. And they explain everything that's both right and wrong with humanity. From the feeling of hope you get when you sit down and watch a really inspiring presentation, to that nice, warm, fuzzy feeling you get after helping somebody out, to the reason you feel alone in a room full of people, and even to the reason why misogynists exist. You might even look at them differently after hearing these 5 truths. These truths will be the key to you relinquishing your anger towards the world, your feeling of helplessness and powerlessness in this world, and they will help you find a deeper meaning beyond simply the power, control, and greed. They'll lead you to a deeper understanding of yourself, of the people you love, of the people you dislike, and they'll lead you towards the path of freedom. And these truths did what every religion and spiritual cult failed to do, which is to help you answer the question, who am I? Why am I here? What is the meaning of life? Why am I on this floating rock that is orbiting a star through space? Why on this rock that has patriarchy? Why as a woman on this rock that has patriarchy? And what can I do as a woman during my very limited time on earth? Without these 5 truths, we are lost. And these truths will be your way back home. So be prepared, because once you hear these 5 truths, there's no going back. Once you're on that other side of the veil, that consciousness that you're going to have is going to be with you for the rest of your life. So I hope you're ready for what you're about to uncover. Think of a time you were in nature and you saw something so awe-inspiring, so much bigger than yourself, that you were at a loss for words. Maybe it was a really pretty sunset. Maybe you were looking up at the night sky, dotted with millions of stars. Maybe you were looking out at the ocean at night, or standing in a forest. Wherever you were, you got that feeling in your chest. You know the one? And that feeling wasn't just your surroundings taking your breath away, it was your surroundings taking your words away as well. And even though you were at a loss for words, you somehow still felt at peace. You felt like you were where you belonged. You were meant to be there. And all the noise from the outside world, from your day-to-day life, was muted. That's how I felt after I uncovered these truths. And hopefully that's how you're going to feel over the next 30 or 40 minutes that we have together. Because I felt like I finally found something that was missing. And I didn't consciously know it was missing, but I intuitively knew it was missing all along. And I have to give credit to Chase Hughes, who did a really, really good YouTube video about this a few months before this one is being released. And I'll link it down below. He actually uncovered these 5 truths by analyzing over 190 ancient texts, from the Tao Te Ching to the Bible, which we'll get into, to Sufism and everything in between. So I have to give him credit for this. And what I'm going to do today is I'm going to share these truths, but I'm going to do it in a way that helps give you meaning to why you are here on this flying rock with patriarchy, on the only flying rock in this entire universe, I hope, that has patriarchy, as a woman. So we're going to take this one step further and adapt it for the girly pops. And if you're new here, my name is Nikki. I am your host and the baddest bitch in the building, not to be confused with you, who's also the baddest bitch in the building. And the reason I always say not to be confused with you, who's also the baddest bitch in the building, is because there is an abundance of opportunity and there is an abundance of everything good in this world. So just because there's one bad bitch in the building doesn't mean there can't be 100 others. And this show is about how to unlearn our internalized patriarchy, how to succeed as a woman in a male, I don't want to say male dominated, I want to say male populated, because the people who dominate this world are the baddies, but in a male populated world, and to find a hack and a loophole or two so we can exploit the system while still dismantling it. So without further ado, let's get into these 5 truths. The first truth is that you are not separate. You never were, and you never could be. And the ancient texts all laid out this truth long before quantum physics corroborated it. And obviously, I'm not going to go through all the texts. If you want more concrete examples of those, watch the Chase Hughes videos, because he actually quotes a lot of these texts. What I'm going to do is I'm going to share some more pertinent quotes. So the one I really, really, really loved was by Rumi, a fellow Persian. He said, "You are not a drop in the ocean. You are the entire ocean in a drop." Even the Bible, oh my God, I never thought I would be quoting the Bible unironically here, but in Luke 17:21, not to be confused with 17:38, in Luke 17:21, it says, "The kingdom of God is within you." Let's correct that to "the queendom of the goddess is within you." Again, never thought I'd be quoting the Bible unironically here. But also ironically is that monism, which is this philosophy that we're talking about, the philosophy that reality and the universe are all one, is a threat to monotheism. So monotheism actually repressed this truth. Monotheism and these Abrahamic cults and the other religious cults are in violation with nature, because to delegate the divine to a being that's outside of us, to say that God is separate from us and that God is a man, that is fundamentally incompatible with this philosophy that all is one. Because if you are the ocean in a drop, then the divine is part of you. It cannot be separate from you, especially as a woman. But these religions needed to brainwash us, to keep us oblivious to our power. It needed to push us onto the other side of the veil, where we're guided by fear. On one side of the veil, we're guided by fear. On the other side of the veil, we're guided by love, which I'm going to discuss in the second truth. What you need to understand here is that the universe started off as a single point. Everything came from the same origin. And to quote the astrophysicist Neil deGrasse Tyson from his book, Astrophysics for People in a Hurry, which I recently reread after reading it initially 5-6 years ago, he said, "We're stardust brought to life, then empowered by the universe to figure itself out. And we have only just begun." Isn't that such a beautiful quote? Nearly every element in your body was made inside of a star. So if anyone ever tells you go back to where you came from, just point to the nearest supernova and be like, okay, I'll be on my way. And it's not just that you are existing in the universe. You are of the universe. You are the universe expressing itself in human form. You are nature in a physical vessel. And to share yet another quote from Chase Hughes in his video, he said, "You are the universe aware of itself. You are the divine, looking out through human eyes temporarily." Mind you, this is a straight white man saying this. So imagine you as a woman, how much power you must have. Imagine the amount of brainwashing it took to convince us that the divine is something external to us, that it is outside of us, that it is wrong and sinful, that it is morally wrong to assume that there is divinity within you. Imagine how much brainwashing, how many lies you've been told from the time you were a child so that you believed that you are not divine. And it's crazy because so far, I've quoted men saying these things. So they understood that. And as women, it's so sad that we don't understand this about ourselves. As a woman, you have a closer sense to nature, to creation, to the divine, because you can create life. And I don't simply mean life as in creating humans. I am child-free by choice. You can create life in other ways. You can create life by being on a journey to live the fullest life possible for yourself, to be on a journey to help other people live the fullest life that they can. A fuller life breeds more life, so it's not just about reproduction. So it's about living this life that you have during your very limited time on earth, living this life to the fullest extent possible and leaving nothing unexamined. And you also need to understand that you are not separate from other people, from men, from humanity. We are not separate. I understand that a lot of us have anger towards the world, anger towards men, and that anger is a mirror of the hatred that they have towards us. But what we're doing when we respond with anger is we're mirroring their division, that they're separate, and we're mirroring their deviation from the truth. And division and isolation are artificially created. Misogyny, homophobia, racism, all the isms and phobias are learned. They are not natural. No one is born a misogynist. No one is born a racist. No one is born a homophobe. Hell, no one is even born an incel. These are learned behaviors and they're deviations from the truth because we are not separate until we are taught and brainwashed and lied to in order to believe that we are. And normally that lie takes the form of fear, which I'm going to talk about in the second truth. So instead of mirroring this deviation from our oneness, we need to look at these people for what they are. They're people who are operating in an altered state. They're operating in a lie. They're lost souls. They're broken and hurting. I'm not saying to feel empathy towards people who are hateful and dangerous. I don't have empathy towards anybody who goes out of their way to spew hate or to harm others, but I can understand them to give myself peace. And you have to understand that behind these people's hatred is fear, like I said a moment ago. And the antidote to hatred is not more hatred, and it's not more anger either. And I'm not saying that it's your job to heal the hatred and anger and the brokenness of this world. It is absolutely not on you to do that. But you do have a responsibility to add more love into this world. And I'm not talking about this in some fuck ass, like, we are the world type of way, which I'll talk about when we get into the subsequent truths. So put a pin in that and we'll circle back to that later. But for this truth here, until we get to the next ones, just understand this. As soon as you believe you are separate, you begin being guided by fear. As soon as you try to tame yourself by being realistic, you've tamed the abundance and the infinite wisdom that can flow through you. You've sealed the passages that can accept that abundance and wisdom completely. Remember that every single thing in this entire universe, every atom that exists, came from the same origin. And the universe fundamentally exists because of abundance. It is constantly expanding into what? I don't know. I don't want to think about it. I'm getting overwhelmed. But it is, I'm sure it's expanded like tens of thousands of kilometers since you started watching this episode. But so many of us are blocking that abundance and that wisdom because of fear, because of realism. We label something as realistic if it already happened. So when we say something is realistic, we're simply just describing history. It's realistic because it already happened. Space travel is realistic because it already happened. But before it happened, I'm sure nobody thought of it as realistic. So when we say something is realistic, we're simply just describing history. You might even be reassured and feel relief that something that you want to do isn't realistic, because that will keep you in your comfort zone. That will keep you in the same cycle of excuses and laziness that will keep you in the exact same spot as you are now. So we might find some temporary peace in history and realism, but that does not bring us any closer to the truth, which leads me to truth number 2. Fear is an illusion. Love is the truth. And Chase Hughes said something in his video that I will never forget. He said, "Fear is the greatest lie ever told." And this makes me think of the stories I've heard of men leaving the manosphere. I watched an interview with a young guy in his early or mid-20s who left the manosphere, and it was the kindness and the empathy of a woman who pulled him out of that, who broke that spell for him. And I've heard stories like this dozens of times, that it was through a woman's kindness that they were able to snap back to reality and see the manosphere for what it is, a cult based on hatred and exploitation and a lack of accountability. And when I'm talking about love, and when these truths and these texts talk about love, it's not romantic love. It's love for yourself, love for the universe, love for life, love for the people around you, love for the oneness, the unity, love for the truth, love for everything you are and everything you can be and everything that you were. That is what love means. And fear is simply a spell that alters our consciousness. And I'm not talking about fear as in experiencing a natural fear response in the face of danger. I'm not talking about your fight or flight. I'm not talking about the instinct you might get when you feel like you're in danger. I'm talking about fear as a learned mindset and behavior. It's the artificially created fear. That's what I'm talking about. And again, that fear, a lot of the time, it operates based on lack. And that is a flat out lie, because that is in violation to the way the universe operates, because the universe can only operate based on abundance. If the universe operated based on lack, it would have ceased to exist billions of years ago. If not, it may have never existed in the first place. And if you really think about it, almost any heinous act that's been committed throughout history, or any awful thing that's happened to you, probably happened out of fear. Like that coworker who tried to sabotage you because she was afraid you'd get the promotion over her. She was operating based on fear. Or the person who fights over a parking spot because they don't think that they can find another one close enough to the mall entrance. I feel like this is the most American thing ever. I mean, even though I live in Canada, I've experienced, or I've seen a few people fight over a parking spot. I'm like, y'all are literally fighting over a piece of air. You're going to go in the mall and walk for like 4 hours. You might as well just go park further and walk 5 minutes to the entrance. Like, be so for real. What else? Or the racist who thinks that immigrants are going to come and steal all the jobs. Or the people who went out and bought all the toilet paper during COVID. All of these acts that are not only harmful, but also you need to throw away your dignity to do these things. These are all rooted in fear. And think about all the things that you've done or the things that you haven't done because of fear. Because of your fear of being judged, disliked, seen, of your fear of not getting validation, your fear of being alone. Think of all the opportunities you've missed because of your fear. So it's just as much about the things that you do as it is about the things that you don't do. And the spell of patriarchy not only wants us to feel fear, it wants us to be fear. Because fear is a state of altered consciousness where we act in violation with nature and in violation with the divinity of our being. That's why Abrahamic religions and other religions function mainly through fear, because you need that altered consciousness to be able to function in a way that violates the very essence of your being, the very essence of your divinity. And when we operate based on fear, we do stupid things that are not in our best interest. And fundamentally, we survive by doing things that are in our best interest. But with fear, that instinct is reversed. So when we are being guided by fear, we're living in a way that violates the very thing that is supposed to keep us alive and living and creating more life. And again, I don't mean creating more life in the terms of reproducing, but creating more life in the way of living a fulfilling life, giving meaning to your life and living life as fully as possible. Neuroscience research has even found that continued exposure to fear can shrink parts of the brain. And to quote Chase Hughes, he says, "Fear makes us live like something is missing." And like I said a few moments ago, fear often needs lack in order to operate, which is fundamentally in contradiction to the way the universe operates, like I've said. And when you drop that fear, when you finally drop the fear, you don't find love. You return to it, because love is our default form of being. If misogynists and racists and homophobes and all these phobes and isms are learned, that means the default is love, which leads me to the third truth. And this is one that could possibly have the deepest impact on your life. Baddies, before we get back to the episode, I know we're in the middle of uncovering a lot of interesting truth. I'm putting on a timer for 45 seconds to let you know what perks you would get by joining the Patreon. You can fast forward if you want. It's going to be 45 seconds only. And the timer is starting now. So the support from all of you baddies is what makes this channel possible. There are lots of perks on Patreon. I have bonus episode, deleted takes from existing episode, deleted episodes altogether, episodes I recorded but just never saw the light of day, episodes I've taken down. I also do baddie requested episodes. You also get a direct access to me, to be quite frank, because I engage in conversation with baddies all the time on Patreon. You also get a free copy of my book, and you get voting power on my girly laws, access to my close friend's story on Instagram, and lots of other perks. Oh my god, 7 seconds. So the link will be in the description. Thank you all so much. I'm so happy for every single one of you. All right, timer's up. Let's get back to the episode. The third truth is this: your mind is not a camera. It is a projector. Even in quantum physics, observation changes the behavior of matter. Matter behaves differently when it is being observed. And if you've read my book, to quote another holy text, if you've read my book, I say this line somewhere towards the end of the book: the way you see the world shapes the world that you see. The universe is simply your external energy. Reality is a mirror of your outlook on life, of the way you see the world, and of the way you see and feel about yourself. And once those goggles of fear have been removed and you can go to the other side of the veil, you can see things more clearly without fear. But that's just the beginning. That's just the start of your path towards freedom. Because to find freedom, you have to believe that it exists. And I know someone's going to comment saying, "Oh, well, what if you're born as a girl in Afghanistan? Then what are you going to do with your reality?" I never said that privilege and the circumstances into which you are born don't play a role in this. They play a huge role. Some people are simply dealt way better cards than other people. And I can't pretend to know the answer to that remark, because even me, I'm in an extremely privileged position, because even though my family is from Iran and I am Iranian, they immigrated to Canada, and that's where I was born. But what I can say is this: living with guilt and living with suffering and deprivation because there are people in the world who are doing worse than you, that's not going to help them. When you deprive yourself or you make yourself suffer because somebody else is deprived and suffering, that doesn't help that person. That just adds more suffering to the world. And if we are all one and everything is connected, and I'm going to talk about this in the fifth and final truth, what is that? What is adding more suffering into this world going to do for anybody? The person who gets most directly impacted by that is you. Oftentimes, the best thing we can do for those around us and for those less fortunate than us is to first work on ourselves and become the best versions of ourselves so that we are in the best possible place to then go out and help other people, empower other people, and lead other people towards the path of truth. And patriarchy is just one version of reality. It's the most butt crack, version of reality, but it is one version of it. And it is a distorted and broken one at that. And it's not a version of reality that you need to accept. Of course, if you live in a patriarchal society, which you most likely do, you can't just be like, okay, I'm not going to accept this. That's not what I mean, not in that sense. You don't have to accept its lies, its brainwashing, its constraints on your behavior, on your mindset. We live in a world of false dichotomies. Again, if you've read my book, you know this theme of false dichotomies comes up in every single chapter because the patriarchy loves binaries. It loves either or. And that's just one of the lies and forms of gatekeeping that we've been told, among the thousands or millions of other lies and gatekeeping. But this is just one version of reality, like I said, and it's unfortunately the dominant version of reality, especially the lie of the either or, of the false dichotomies. You can either do something you love, or you can make a lot of money. You can either be rich and successful, or you can be a good person. It's always an either or. And true freedom comes from understanding that there are very few true binaries in this world. There are very few true either ors in this world. We need to start thinking in terms of and. It is possible to be rich and successful and to be a good person. It is possible to do what you love and make a lot of money. I'm using these examples of career and money and success because that's one of the most dominant ways that we've been brainwashed into this either or thinking. No matter where you are in the world, where you work, who you are, you've probably been brainwashed into that type of either or thinking. And this lie, among all the other lies, is likely one of the dominant versions of reality because it's the one that we can easily accept, because it takes so much control away from us and it brings us back to being realistic. And when we can be realistic, we can make excuses, we can be lazy, and we can stay in our comfort zone where we feel safe and comfortable. Oh, I'm not even going to bother trying to be rich and successful. I'm not even going to bother trying to get my business off the ground because I'm going to have to sell my soul. I'm going to have to work really, really, really hard. And even then it might fail. So we relinquish power. And what we're actually doing is we're delegating power to forces outside of us. That's what we're doing. So zooming out, stop accepting things at face value. Stop letting other people write the story of your reality for you. If you see the world as full of greed and hatred and power mongering, then guess what? That's all you're going to see, which is extremely easy because look at the news. And I'm not saying that there is not an abundance of greed and power mongering and control and violence and coercion and all of that in the world. There absolutely is. But what you focus on, you create more of. What you focus on, you simply see more of. The way I choose to see the world now is through varying levels of consciousness. I see hateful people as lost souls, broken people who have very low levels of consciousness, who've been simply programmed to be the way that they are. Not to say they don't have any accountability, but they're so far away from consciousness and freedom that it's pitiful. I see greedy, power-hungry people as people with high levels of consciousness, but low levels of oneness, low levels of love. And that is the emptiest way to live. Maybe that's why a lot of these billionaires are bald. And When I see the world and the people within it as, people with varying levels of consciousness, that gives me a sense of control and power, because consciousness is something that you can actively develop. It's within your hands. So please, whatever way you give meaning to the world, make sure that you are never buying into a narrative or a worldview where you are at the mercy of your circumstances. You can create your circumstances, you can create your reality, because your mind is a projector, and everything first starts with your mind and your self-concept. And speaking of self-concept, let's turn to the fourth truth. The fourth truth is the enemy is not the world. The enemy is the ego. And I want to be very clear on the definition of the ego. This is what Chase Hughes says. Ego is the story you built to survive your fears. It's a mask, a guardrail, a protective suit that's stitched together from things like trauma and insecurity. So ego, in this case, not to be confused with ego as our sense of worth, importance, and ability. That's not the ego I'm talking about. That ego is extremely important for us to nurture and grow, because as women, we've all experienced ego death, especially at the hands of religion. That's not the ego I'm talking about. So the ego that we're discussing here is that story that's built on fear. The way you make sense of the world built on fear. This is the ego that keeps you small and limited. And like we saw with truth number 2, fear is not real. It's an illusion. So the ego is a hallucination. It's something that's built on something that doesn't exist, which is fear. So when Chase Hughes was talking about this truth, he said something that really resonated with me. He said, you can't experience truth while holding on to something that isn't true. Your ego is not true. And as long as you hold on to that ego, you're going to be on the wrong side of the veil. I'm going to use the example of misogynists again. Their ego is their downfall. Their ego is created by a version of reality where they have no accountability, where everything is the fault of women. They live in this story that they've created where they're the victim. And that story is underlined by their own fears and their own comparisons to other men, comparisons to maybe more good-looking men or taller men or men with more success with women, their fears of rejection, their fears of whatever it is. They've built a self-concept based on fear, and then they've built a worldview that relies on that fear. So their entire existence is based on an illusion. And when you understand them like that, it's no surprise that they are so far removed from love and unity, because they need the illusion of fear and of hatred, learned hatred, to operate. And more than anything, their hatred of women feeds on the hatred of themselves. And I'm not saying this so you can have empathy for them. I don't have empathy for them. I don't think we should, because they go out of their way to harm others, but it's a way to understand them. And when you can understand people and see past their mask and their posturing, that's when you are able to see the truth, because the mask is an illusion. The posturing is an illusion. It's the same thing with people who have a victim mindset, victimella. These people have relinquished their sense of control over their self, control over their fate. And they fed themselves a lie that they are the victim, that the world is against them, that they have to be at the mercy of their circumstances. They fed themselves a lie so they can stay in the same miserable reality. And so they can stay in this false reality. And you might be thinking, well, how can a reality be false if reality is something that we create? Reality is only false when it's built on the illusion of fear and hatred. So to recap this truth, the enemy is not the world, the enemy is the ego. And as long as you keep holding on to your ego and defending your ego, you will never be able to make it to the other side of the veil, to make it onto the side of the truth. And the last truth, number 5, everything is connected. It's funny because even in religious lies, like the story of Adam and Eve, even that states that we all came from the same place, from a dude's rib. But in all seriousness, even in quantum physics, there's a concept called entanglement. And I'm going to share a definition of quantum entanglement from NASA. Quantum entanglement is the idea that particles of the same origin, which were once connected, always stay connected. Isn't that so cute? Even if they separate and move far apart in time and space, they continue to share something beyond a mere bond. They shed their original quantum states and take on a new, united quantum state, which they maintain forever. This means if something happens to one particle, it affects all the others with which it's entangled. Isn't that so cute? Oh my goodness. But there you go. That is quantum physics explaining the concept that everything is connected. Because at the end of the day, remember, everything is just matter. And this truth is similar to the first truth, where I discussed that everything comes from the same origin. So naturally it follows that if everything came from the same place, go back to where you came from, the Big Bang, then nothing can be separate. And this reminds me of how I've never had an original experience in my life. Let me name a few experiences and you tell me if you've had these too. When you wake up early in the morning to go to school and you run your hand under warm water and it feels so comforting. When you went to Home Depot as a kid and your favorite part was to go through the light fixtures aisle and look at all the lights. Okay, I'm just thinking of these on the spot. I can't think of any more, but feel free to drop some more unoriginal experiences that we've all had in the comments. Hey baddies, it's Editing Nikki here. I just remembered another unoriginal experience I had growing up. Please, someone tell me they experienced this too. Did anyone else's family have the popcorn puke bowl? You know, the 2-in-1. Sometimes it was a 3-in-1. The bowl for popcorn, puke, and Halloween candy. I'm sure at least one of you listening grew up with this too. Anyway, back to the show. We've never had an original experience in our life, and that's because we are all connected. We're all the same. I'm not even kidding. I probably sound like some kind of lunatic wearing like beads and white linen pants, but we are all one. I am you, you are me. We are literally all the same. We are the world. We are the children. So what do we do? Now that we have these 5 truths, where do we go from here? Like I said in the episode directly preceding this one about Disney, consciousness is the antidote to patriarchy. And these truths have always been part of who you are. So it's not about going out and externally learning about these things. It's about removing things to get back to the core of who you are. To use an analogy I haven't drawn on in a few months, and this is an analogy inspired by my favorite movie of all time, Shrek. Well, actually my second favorite movie of all time, because my favorite is Shrek 2. My second favorite is Shrek 1. If you know, you know. In Shrek 1, Shrek says to Donkey, ogres are like onions. We have layers. And baddies are like onions. We have layers. We have to peel through all those layers to get to the core of who we are. And those layers are kind of like scar tissue because they've been formed through the lies and the brainwashing that we've been socialized into. And the way we remove those layers is through consciousness. So we have to remove the noise, the lies, the distractions. And the distractions is a big one because we live in a time of constant distractions, constant dopamine. There's no such thing as silence anymore. There's no such thing as being bored. Do you remember being bored as a kid? That doesn't exist anymore. Sitting in silence, whether it's through meditation, even a guided meditation, or through journaling, or writing yourself letters, which is my favorite thing to do. Whatever you decide to do, find a way to be in silence with yourself and to allow your intuition to communicate with you, because your intuition is the universe's voice in your head. Because remember, you're not a drop in the ocean. You are the ocean in a drop. You are the universe in a physical vessel. And your intuition is the main form of communication that can drive you towards a fulfilling life, towards the truth. So it might take a lot of time, weeks, months, maybe years to peel through those layers, get through all the lies and the distractions and get to the core of who you are. And depending on how much scar tissue has been built up, how many years of excuses and lies and brainwashing that you've endured, it could be very difficult. It could feel impossible. But just by listening to this episode and uncovering these truths, you now have a consciousness that the majority of people on this planet do not have. And let me tell you this, there's something unique to you. The skills and the talents and the insights that you have are unique to you. No one has ever had that, and no one ever will. And you are not here by accident. You are in this physical vessel, and not as another person, not as an animal, not as an insect. You are this physical vessel. You are the person you are today, here, right now, for a reason. And for you to prevent yourself from self-actualizing, from getting to the truth, from living to your fullest potential and finding out what that unique thing is that you can provide the world, if you don't do that, you are gatekeeping the greatness that you have from the world. You're not only depriving yourself, but you're depriving everybody else. And once you leave this earth, once your finite time on this planet is over, that skill, that uniqueness is going to leave with you, and it will never come back. So use this time to transmute your anger, your suffering, your pain into an art, into that unique thing that you've been put on this earth to provide. I like to think of it this way: your desires were given to you by the universal intelligence because you are the best person to carry them out. Maybe it was never about changing the world, but changing your relationship with the world. Maybe that's how you affect the most change. Until next time, don't forget that you are not only the baddest bitch in the building, but you are love, you are unity, you are truth, you are abundance. Until next time, stay bad. Love you. Bye. I'd like to give a shout out to all the generous baddies who are supporting on Patreon and who make this show possible. Shout out to Melinda, Lindsay, Danny, Nadine, Kate, Yelena, Via, Adriana, Amara, Wisal, Hannah, Amberly, Ildiko, Gemma, Amanda, Red, Sophia M, Sophia K, Ladenko, Melissa, Lisa, Nilufar, and Naomi. Thank you all so much for your support.